heart pounding fast. Sophia Walker rushed down the narrow airplane aisle, bouncing baby Grace against her shoulder. The infant's cries echoed through the cabin, as passengers turned to stare. Seat 14C. Where was 14C? You're in my seat, said a deep voice. Sophia looked up, to find a man in an expensive navy suit standing beside her. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his watch gleamed gold under the cabin lights. Everything about him screamed wealth and importance. "I'm so sorry," Sophia whispered, fumbling with her boarding pass, while Grace wailed louder. "I thought this was—" "Wait." She squinted at the crumpled paper in her shaking hands. "This says 14A, not 14C." The businessman's expression softened as he watched her struggle. "You're in the right seat. I made a mistake." He gestured toward the window seat beside her. "May I?" As he settled in, Sophia noticed his hands trembling slightly as he buckled his seatbelt. Strange, she thought. He seemed so composed, yet something flickered behind his confident exterior. "First time flying with a baby?" he asked gently. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "First time flying alone with her. My husband, he's deployed overseas. Military." She bounced Grace desperately, trying to quiet her cries. "I'm visiting my sister in Denver. She just had surgery and—" "Hey there, little one," the stranger said softly to Grace. His voice carried an unexpected tenderness. "What's got you so upset?" Something magical happened. Grace's cries softened to whimpers, then stopped entirely. She stared at the man with wide, curious eyes. "I'm Jackson," he said, extending his hand to Sophia. "Jackson Mitchell." "Sophia Walker. And this is Grace." She studied his face, noting the sadness that seemed to live behind his kind smile. "Are you traveling for business?" Jackson's jaw tightened. "Something like that." He pulled out his phone, showing her a photo of a beautiful woman holding a newborn. "This was my wife, Rebecca, and our daughter, Lily." Was. Past tense. Sophia's breath caught. "Jackson, I'm so sorry. Car accident. 6 months ago." His voice cracked. "Lily was just 3 months old. Same age as Grace here." He touched Grace's tiny hand, gently. I'm flying to meet with a lawyer. Finalizing some things." The weight of his grief filled the space between them. Sophia understood now why his hands had been shaking, why sadness lived in his eyes, despite his polished appearance. "I run a company," Jackson continued. "Mitchell Technologies. We develop apps, software solutions. After Rebecca and Lily died, work became my everything. 16-hour days, sleeping at the office." He paused. "My business partner thinks I've lost my mind." "What do you mean?" Jackson pulled out a tablet, showing her a colorful app interface. "I've been developing this for months. It's called Village Connect. It matches new parents with experienced ones in their neighborhood. Single mothers with supportive families. People who need help, with people who can give it." Sophia studied the screen. The app was beautifully designed, intuitive. "This is incredible, Jackson. My board thinks it's a waste of resources. No profit model, they say. But I keep thinking, if Rebecca had something like this. If she'd had more support when I was traveling for work." His voice trailed off. Grace began fussing again. Without thinking, Jackson gently took her from Sophia's arms. The baby settled immediately against his chest. "You're a natural at this," Sophia whispered. "Rebecca used to say I had magic hands with Lily." Tears gathered in his eyes. "I haven't held a baby since." The plane hit turbulence. Grace startled, but remained calm in Jackson's arms. Around them, other passengers had been watching the quiet interaction with curious eyes. A young businessman across the aisle pulled out his phone, discreetly recording. Not for social media, but because something about this moment felt important. His own wife was pregnant, and seeing Jackson's gentle touch with Grace stirred something deep within him. The lawyer I'm meeting, Jackson said suddenly. He's not just handling Rebecca's estate. I'm signing papers to donate most of my wealth to pediatric hospitals and family support organizations. Sophia's eyes widened. Jackson, that's beautiful. But what about your future? What future? He laughed bitterly. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and it couldn't save the 2 people who mattered most. The elderly woman across the aisle had been listening. She leaned forward, with kind eyes. Young man, may I tell you something? Jackson nodded. I lost my first husband in Vietnam. Thought my life was over, at 23. But grief isn't meant to be the end of your story. It's meant to be the beginning of a new chapter. She pulled out a worn photograph from her purse. This is my second husband, Thomas. We had 43 beautiful years together. 3 children, 8 grandchildren. Sometimes, the greatest love comes after the greatest loss. Behind them, a flight attendant named Sarah approached quietly. Excuse me, sir? I couldn't help but notice your app. My sister is a single mom in Phoenix. She could really use something like that. Jackson's eyes met Sophia's. Something was shifting. What if? Sophia said carefully. What if the Village Connect isn't just an app? What if it's bigger than that? What do you mean? What if it's a foundation? What if instead of giving your money away and walking away, you used it to build something that would help thousands of families? Something Rebecca and Lily would be proud of. Jackson stared at her. Grace cooed softly in his arms, her tiny fingers wrapped around his tie. I have an MBA, Sophia continued. Before Grace was born, I worked in non-profit development. I know how to build sustainable programs, how to create real impact. My husband always said I had a gift for bringing people together. The plane began its descent into Denver. Through the window, the Rocky Mountains stretched endlessly, under the morning sun. The young businessman who'd been watching them quietly approached. Excuse me, he said hesitantly. I'm David Walker. I own a marketing firm in Denver. What you're talking about, this Village Connect, it could change everything. If you need help getting the word out, I'd like to volunteer my services. Sarah, the flight attendant, had been listening too. My supervisor is over there, she whispered, pointing to a woman in her 40s. She started a support group for airline employees after her divorce. She might want to hear about this. Jackson looked around at the faces watching him. All strangers an hour ago, now suddenly feeling like family. Are you offering to help me? He asked quietly. We're offering to help you honor them. The right way, Sophia said, her voice growing stronger. Jackson looked down at Grace, then back at the growing circle of people around them. For the first time in months, hope flickered in his eyes. As they gathered their belongings, Jackson handed Sophia his business card. Call me tomorrow. Actually, Sophia smiled. Why don't you come meet my sister? She's raising 2 kids alone, while recovering from surgery. She could be our first Village Connect success story. Jackson paused in the aisle. You know, I think I sat in the wrong seat on purpose. What do you mean? I always fly first class, but something told me to book coach today, to sit in 14C instead of 2A. He shifted Grace to one arm and helped Sophia with her bag. Maybe Rebecca was still looking out for me. David handed Jackson his card. I'll send you some ideas for the foundation launch. No charge. The elderly woman touched Jackson's arm, gently. That app of yours. You should add a feature for grandparents who want to help. We have so much love to give. As they walked off the plane together, other passengers watched with soft smiles. Sarah made a mental note to look up Village Connect online. The captain, who'd heard about the conversation from his crew, quietly decided to mention the app to his own daughter, a struggling single mother in Seattle. 6 months later, Jackson stood before a packed auditorium in Denver. Behind him, a large screen displayed the Village Connect logo and testimonials from hundreds of families across all 50 states. When I lost my wife and daughter, he said into the microphone, I thought kindness was dead in this world. Then I met a young mother on a plane, who showed me that sometimes, sitting in the wrong seat, puts you exactly where you need to be. In the front row, Sophia bounced Grace on her lap, now the director of family services for the Mitchell Foundation. Beside her sat her sister, fully recovered, and volunteering as a mentor mother. David Walker sat nearby, with his pregnant wife, already planning their involvement with Village Connect after their baby arrived. The elderly woman from the plane, Eleanor, had become the Foundation's first volunteer coordinator for their grandparent program. Sarah had left her flight attendant job to work full-time, connecting military families through the app. Jackson's voice grew stronger. Village Connect has now helped over 10,000 families across America. But it started with one simple truth. We all need each other. And sometimes, the greatest gifts come from our deepest losses. He pulled out his phone, showing the audience a new photo. Grace taking her first steps toward him at the Foundation's headquarters. Sophia laughing in the background. Rebecca used to say, that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up when you need them most. As applause filled the auditorium, Jackson touched the small photo in his pocket. Rebecca holding baby Lily. In his heart, he heard Rebecca's voice, clear as day. Well done, my love. Well done. Grace clapped her tiny hands from the audience, her laughter carrying across the room like music. Sophia wiped tears from her eyes as her phone buzzed with a text from her deployed husband. Watched the live stream. So proud of you both. Can't wait to meet Jackson when I get home. Some wrong turns lead us exactly where we belong. And sometimes, the greatest journeys begin with a simple act of sitting down beside a stranger and choosing to care. In the back of the auditorium, a young mother held her crying baby, feeling overwhelmed and alone. She pulled out her phone and downloaded Village Connect, not knowing that in 3 days, she'd be matched with Eleanor, who would become like a grandmother to her child. The ripples of kindness, it seemed, had only just begun.